Many introverts look robotic. Here's 3 reasons why. Number 1, you look stiff. Number 2, you sound boring. And number 3, you look awkward. In this video, I'll show you how to fix these. Number 1, use your hands. You may have experienced in the past people just feeling awkward around you, or as an introvert, you may feel stiff, or you find it difficult to get your thoughts out eloquently. Now, I remember having this problem, especially when I was a teenager. I just used to look at the popular people around me, and for some reason, they used to have this behavior of just using their hands or emoting with their hands when they spoke. And I also saw the same thing with TEDx speakers and people who are really popular on the internet, in interviews. They tend to use their hands, and it kind of drew me in to the talk. I kind of felt like listening and engaging more with the talk. So the reason why this is because using your hands actually generates trust with people. I actually learned about this concept from this person called Vanessa Van Edwards, who wrote the book Captivate. And when I listened to this audiobook, I realized the importance of using your hands and how that actually is something that we humans are primed to look at. We focus on the hands because that allows us to understand the message better, and we even follow the hands. One of the things I've realized is that when I'm holding a piece of paper and I basically move it to one side when I'm talking to someone, they actually follow the piece of paper, because they're basically, the hands are a way to check whether there's any weapons or anything that is dangerous, and it's really something that is deeply ingrained in us. One of the things that I realized as well is that it's a cultural thing. A lot of people in the Middle East or from Southern Europe, Latina cultures, they tend to emote with their hands. There's a very common stereotype of Italians who do this. It's a cultural expression, using your hands. Whereas people in the West, or people in Japan, tend to keep their hands to the side, and they kind of look very robotic. So if you want to appear more human as an introvert, it's best to actually use your hands and emote more, and just consciously try and just let your hands do some talking, even if it doesn't feel right at first. By the way, before we keep going, if you like the way I break down this content step by step, I've started compiling a course, which is a basic, very comprehensive plan for introverts, and you can hit me up on the introvertstrategies at gmail.com to learn some more. Number 2, vary the tone of your voice. Now, this is very important so you don't sound boring. When you have a monotone voice, which is something that very introverts tend to have, and even in this video I'm trying to practice not to do that, it can make people zone out. You may have experienced this when you were in school, when you try to speak about something and all of a sudden people just start zoning out, they're not really listening to you, or you're trying to get your point across and people just don't seem to understand what you're saying. It doesn't sink in. I remember specifically my mum used to call me out for mumbling, and I think it's because of this monotone voice. When you're just keeping everything at a flat line, the brain finds it hard to focus. And that brings me up to the point, why? Why is it important that you have a variation to your tone? The brain needs variation so it can focus, especially in this hyper-stimulated world that we live in now. If you use and vary the tone of your voice, use color, use high pitches, low pitches, it can make people feel more likely to focus, they're basically more likely to focus on your message. Now, how do you actually do this? Because it's very difficult to do consciously or even subconsciously. Subconsciously is the best way to do it. I've found in my experience that, number 1, getting physically strong and in good shape really helped me do that, because it makes the body subconsciously feel that there's no fear of basically being expressive. No one's going to hurt you because you can fight whatever threat comes along. And the second one is quitting porn, quitting PMO. That actually really helped me, because I found that in the past when I was a heavy addict, I used to just used to affect the way I spoke with people, and everything was just very monotone. The first month or 2 after quitting, I started realizing that my tone, when I spoke, the tone of my voice was actually more varied and basically sounded more interested. So that's number 2. Number 3, finally, keep your hands visible, especially in team calls. Now, this is in our online culture right now where we don't do a lot of face-to-face, we have a lot of virtual team calls. When you keep your hands visible, it simulates real life. And you may have experienced that when you're in team calls. When all you can see is a person's face just like that in a camera, it feels very awkward, it feels very straining, and it feels like very confrontational. But when you take a step back and you're using your hands, it creates something more emotional, it creates a more emotional and more human connection. Now, I remember specifically in interviews is the one place where I really saw the effect of this. When I spoke to older people, older folks, they tend to have this habit of not using their hands. They tend to keep their hands low and they tend to keep kind of close to the camera, and it's just a speaking head, talking head, and it just comes across as very awkward. So I found that in interviews, I tend to have a kind of a closed off view when I'm speaking to older folks because of this habit. But younger folks tend to have, I would say, people who are between the ages of 30 and 40, I've noticed that they tend to take a step back from the camera and they're more likely to use their hands when they're speaking to someone. And that creates a better connection. Why is this important? This is important because, as I said before, it allows the body to understand that there's no threat. You're not holding a weapon in your hand, and you're building that trust. And there's actually ways you can do this. You can, for me, what I tend to do is that in a video call, I just keep my hands clasped like this as my default position. Or if I'm listening to someone, I just do this, keeping one hand under my chin. And that helps them to feel that one hand is always visible at least. And then when I'm speaking, that's when I actually start emoting, start moving my hands about and keeping things visible. So hopefully these tips will help you. Comment down below what you've tried. Comment down below what kind of tips you found that have helped you be less robotic as an introvert. With that said, hit me up again on introvertstrategies.com, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.